Ayo, Shalom.
Gotta keep the faith, cause that's all we got. Gotta keep holding on. Endure till the chariots dry. You're not alone, keep staying strong. Gotta keep the faith, cause that's all we got. Gotta keep holding on. Endure till the chariots dry. You're not alone, keep staying strong. Gotta keep the faith, stay on fire, never cease. Holding on with a peace while he tryna find peace. Saved by hope, tryna see the broader scope. We was washed by the word and I ain't talk about soap. Steadfast to the end, don't break, never bend. Gotta have works, are you dead? We labor for love, be strong, send my prayers above. We come from kings, but they told us we thugs. Used to look at my brother with mugs, now I greet him with hug. Gotta endure, even know that we been through enough. We got chosen when they doubted us. Most high open doors when it ain't adding up. Believing in the faith is what we stand on. Rhythm of my life, singing in the same song. Pray without season, run this race without wheezing. Keep believing, our salvation nearer than we thinking. Gotta keep the faith, cause that's all we got. Gotta keep holding on. Endure till the chariots dry. You're not alone, keep staying strong. Gotta keep the faith, cause that's all we got. Gotta keep holding on. Endure till the chariots dry. You're not alone, keep staying strong. Gotta have patience and endure it in these last days. An early death when you living in that fast lane. Pressing towards the mark, pushing well beyond pain. We one body, but we focus on the same thing. Iron sharpen iron until we get it right. Keep my faith strong, seeing things that's out of sight. Tending for the faith, we all brothers, we ain't gotta fight. Let your light shine, giving vision to the next. Renewal on my mind, giving all my best. Gotta know that this life is just a test. Live up in the spirit, not the flesh. Stood up on my feet, got wisdom in my breath. Warrior mindset, I'm a servant of the Lord. Gotta keep the faith, cause that's all we got. Gotta keep holding on. Endure till the chariots dry. You're not alone, keep staying strong. Gotta keep the faith, cause that's all we got. Gotta keep holding on. Endure till the chariots dry. You're not alone, keep staying strong.
Vinyl genius. Wish I had Keep Sweat in the background, cause I'ma sweat on this one. I discern you remember that night in McCullough Park. Spoke to you, Lord, show me your face, show me who you are. I can endure the pain, trust. Look at all these scars, even pops withering away. I pour all my heart. Moms can't deal with me cause I chose all the wrong instead of right. Just wanna vibe, so have you heard of me? You open my eyes and I need surgery. I make me sick cause I felt you all the way. Was never atheist. These pages exit Jesus, I had to exit Jesus. Black men in America, yeah, you best believe it. Sounded hella Greekish, so when I saw your burnt feet, I could imagine Peter's. Chanel braided this woolly hair with melanated fingers. Gotta escape the preachers, find the ancient teachers. Endow me please with wisdom, Lord, from the gated kingdom. The one and only YHWH, yes, you gave me freedom. I'm on my exegesis. Every page I flip, eyes got slow, tear to a drip. Lord, I'm up, thug to a prince. What am I holding? Who found me here when I was broke? Every page I flip, eyes got slow, tear to a drip. Lord, I'm open, thug to a prince. What am I holding? Who found me here when I was broke? Yeah, salvation in Matthew 24. Swing chariot, swing low. Spreading light through the world on a couple primos. On my exegesis, niggas, I ain't Negro. I'm your chosen, felt it back and I'm eating cheese flow. Turn the mic up, turn they hype up, let the people go. Cause know this gospel here reveals y'all evils. Threw off that rock and wear it clear. No fooling me, oh, how about they know us? They hit us and choked us from the life we own once. So I spit like locusts, cause when you tied them ropes up and you had your hopes up, YHWH look down on us. Our power, that gold dust, your tower X'd in old dust. Like the ancient Egypt, can't you see your paraplegic heresies and fantasies? Izrio, that canopy. And the ironic thing, nigga, I still can't believe. Exegesis. Every page I flip, eyes got slow. Tear to a drip. Lord, I'm on. Thug to a prince. What am I holding? Who found me here when I was broke? Every page I flip, eyes got swollen. Tear to a drip. Lord, I'm on. Thug to a prince. What am I holding? Who found me here when I was broke? Every page I flip, eyes got swollen. Tear to a drip. Lord, I'm on. Thug to a prince. What am I holding? Who found me here when I was broke? Every page I flip, eyes got swollen. Tear to a drip. Lord, I'm open. Thug to a prince. What am I holding? Who found me here when I was broke?
Oh man, you believe in God?
Yo, why the fuck y'all get so damn religious-fied thing?
Man, look, do I believe in God? Yeah, I guess I do. How else can you have the sun, the moon, and the stars and shit like that?
Sun, moon, stars, quasars, motherfuckers sound like they're wooden checks. Ain't no God.
When will it stop?
Okay.
Another dead Jake from a cop. Another fiend came through the cop. Another deadlock. Another 8-ball in the sock. Another crime scene on Fox. How did this begin? I was so right just to sin. Hear all my thoughts through the pen. The sorrows of men. When you can't go see your kid. Got no food in the fridge. Is this what life is? Blowing out your pain through a cig. Behind all the bills in the crib. Searching for a light. But it's so dark at night. Walk through the blocks with a knife. Roaches and mice. Locked up, never get a kite. Come to serve the Lord, better fight. Battle in your mind. Hunger paid equate to a crime. Looking all around for a sign. Living in the time where you can't even trust your mom. Rumors of wars, drop bombs. Needles, white lines. Christ be the only lifeline. Everything is all about the sign. Leave it all behind. If I shine, nigga, you shine. If I shine, nigga, you shine.
If I shine, nigga, you shine. If I shine, nigga, you shine. Deeply rooted, bearing fruits of the spirit. Lift my voice, hoping you gon' hear it. I'm in the spirit, you can't kill my vibes. I'm in the spirit, you can't kill my vibes. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise.
And I can't question your mercy. That's above the wonders of the sky. And I know through what I've seen, without a doubt you are alive.
They say be careful of the angels you entertain unaware. Words out the book of life seem like the thunder here. Thankful for the time now, just to see another year. It's a different type of feeling when you see your brother cheer. Cause we been through the madness, we done seen each other's tears, Lord knows. Through the furnace of adversities, my enemies conspiring and dreaming of them hurting me. Enemies conspiring and dreaming of them hurting me. This is not the battle of flesh and blood. No one's seen the judgment. He ain't step up out the ark to check the flood. Sworn under an oath in the Most High's covenant. Live by the creed. All these prophets been my brothers since. Still I rise as the world is scorched. As they torture my ancestors made of me poor. The last days on its way, so we gon' overcome. Only Christ could determine when a soldier's done, yeah.
Deeply rooted, bearing fruits of the spirit. Lift my voice, hoping you gon' hear it. I'm in the spirit, you can't kill my vibes. I'm in the spirit, you can't kill my vibes. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise.
And I can't question your mercy. That's above the wonders of the sky. And I know through what I've seen, without a doubt you are alive.
Yeah. Trying hard not to complicate these verses. Soul searching, know these demons out here lurking. Where's your purpose? Cut the grass, see the serpents, feel the curses. Know the devil out here working. Close the curtains. One thing is for certain, we all die one day, but does your soul live? And will he forgive? Only Lord knows this. Tell these clowns settle down, we around. Paint the town red for my ancestors' blood. From the bloodline of Judah, cause my ancestors was. Me and the general, souls identical. Gold flow spiritual, oh so lyrical. Really not your typical Joseph in the physical. Gabar from KC, Indians and Chiefs. Ride for my people, we the sons of Maccabees. Open up Pandora's box and had to take a peek. No faith without works, you gon' have to take the leap. We the lost sheep from Jerusalem, we weak. Got bros still asleep. I pray for the weak and build with the strong. Just talk to my cuz, he got a lot going on. I told him keep his head up, he just going through a storm. Our family's been torn apart by the drugs. Heart full of slugs, left its mark in the mud. I was the love, surrounded by the hate. Made it this far by faith, mercy, and grace. Yeah. Made it this far by faith, mercy, and grace.
Deeply rooted, bearing fruits of the spirit. Lift my voice, hoping you gon' hear it. I'm in the spirit, you can't kill my vibes. I'm in the spirit, you can't kill my vibes. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise. And if I fall, still I rise.
And I can't question your mercy. That's above the wonders of the sky. And I know through what I've seen, without a doubt you are alive.
Yeah. Yeah. When you see some light, that's a breakthrough. Concrete jungle, it's a damn zoo. Eyes wide, while they live on snooze. I hope in what you touch, impact some souls. Picture perfect, nigga, like a centerfold. I'm all about my bread, that's the dinner roll. Do it on my lonely, you can send the word. I remember drinking until my speech was slurred. But karma is the bitch, you better treat it right. It's power in these thoughts, she gave me mic. But this your life, nigga roll the dice. Eviction notice, try not to notice. But through your ups and downs, trying to find your purpose. Girded in this truth, blocking evil forces. Good intentions, create your invention. No huddle, fourth and inches. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on your way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. Since the snotty nose, I've been kind of bold. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on my way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. Since the snotty nose, I've been kind of bold. You headed to them streets, trying to fill the void. Trying to box with God, trying to win our floor. All these traps, gotta count the joy. I lift my voice up like a trumpet though. Wash away these sins and these transgressions. Change your outlook, that's your only weapon. But we the black Jews, these is mental Jews. Trying to set a pace while they drive on cruise. Can't trust they action, they intent is cruel. I'm from a sunny place where it's shady people. Erase your history, and they say we equal. Do your all in this world, they make you feeble. Built these corporations, look how they treat you. Get up on your grind, I'm thinking ownership. I know your past mistakes equate to something better. He give visions to the blind, Helen Keller. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on your way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. Since the snotty nose, I've been kinda bold. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on my way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. But since the snotty nose, I've been kinda bold.
Madrim Mokoni Makudam, rise and face the east. Mark chapter 12 and verse 29 says, YHWH answered them, the first of all commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Shema YASHARAHLA, AHLAHAYANAWA, ACHAAD, AMAD. All right, shalom, shalom to everyone. Shalom to everyone here. All of you see the lesson of tonight, the King of Greece. Tonight's lesson, we will be going into Daniel chapter 8 to cover the preface and background story for Holy Week, known as the Feast of Dedication, also known as the Feast of Lights. Set volume. All right. So the book of Daniel chapter 8 goes into what I'll call pre-Maccabees, before the book of Maccabees takes place. And as we read and as we go into it, we'll begin to know and understand, as the prophets always of old were always given prophecies, visions, and interpretations of what would come to pass and what would happen before the events happened and everything took place. So get Daniel chapter 8 and verse 1. Anyone that has questions, put them in the chat. Anyone that needs to inquire and doesn't understand, engage. This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 1. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. So Daniel is currently in Babylonian captivity, and right now he's receiving a vision of what's to come down the road. And he has already given his vision prior, back in chapters 2 and then chapter 7, about what is to occur and what is to take place when he's gone and he's no longer physically presently there, because he's in the first stage of captivity or captivities that will come to pass and happen, being Babylon. So this vision he's about to receive, and as we go into it, is going to explain what is going to occur and take place into the time period we're going to shortly get into. You read it? Verse 2. And I saw in a vision, and it came to me, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. So he was in Shushan, the palace described and noted inside the book of Esther during the Persian captivity. And he's by the river of Ulai, which falls into the river Euphrates. Now we're going to begin to get into this breakdown and this interpretation of what it is that he's seeing. Go ahead. Verse 4. No, verse 3. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And the higher came up last. Apaya, can you pull up the slideshow? TV's being, I'm not sure. Stop. You guys will be able to see. Slideshow is entitled Alexander in Greece. We are shortly and now going to get into the breakdown of these 2 horns and the rest of this vision. Oh, we're good now. All right, Apayak, next slide. All right, the 2-horned ram. This ram represents the Medo-Persian Empire that lasted from 559 to 330 BC, beginning from Cyrus the Great to the ending of Darius III in 330 BC. The Persians originally began out of the vassal kingdom to the Medes, but the tides of rulership changed in 559 BC when King Cyrus, reigning in Anshan, overthrew Astyages to unite the Persians and Medes into one nation. The Medo-Persian Empire covered 2.1 million square miles, roughly covering 2/3 of the United States, covering as far west certain portions of Greece to covering portions of today's Afghanistan to Pakistan and covering southward towards Egypt. So when it's talking about how 2 horns were high and one was higher than the other, the Medes, originally beginning within the 8th to 7th centuries, had dominance over the Persians. It eventually changed and switched in roughly the middle of the 6th century BC to where now the Persians are over the Medes. So when it's talking about how one horn is higher than the other, the Persians are now ruling over the Medes, even though they are now both simultaneously one nation. This is why Daniel described in chapter 2 in his vision the body of silver that has 2 arms, but it is one body, represents the Medes and the Persians, but they are now one nation. And the higher came up last. Again, this is talking about how the Persians are over the Medes now in dominance. Read verse 4. This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 4. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did accordingly to his will and became great. So I'm going to pull up pictures after the slideshow to show everyone how vast and how extensive the empires were, both Persian and the Greeks, but to show how vast they were in comparison to the size of the United States today, to show how extensive these empires were in this ancient time, and how within the book of Daniel, the succession of each empire, they only grew more and more. Verse 5. Verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. So it was a he-goat from the west. This should be obviously significant. Goats have straight hair. Goat is representative of Esau. And not just Esau, but this notable horn between his eyes represents Alexander the Great. Next slide. So, Alexander the Great, also known as Alexander the Third, he's not the first one. inherited the throne of his kingdom of his father Philip II, who was the king of Macedon. At the age of 20, he was already beginning to put down revolts and consolidate his hold over the nation of Greece in totality. 3 major campaigns determined the outcome and the existential growth of what would become the Grecian Empire. His father was assassinated in 336 BC due to a homosexual affair he had. So his son took his place only at the age of 20 and became king of Macedon, and eventually would have to put down revolts in Greece to unite all of Greece together under his rulership and then proceed to conquer and take over the Persian Empire. So this he-goat, going back to verse 5, from the west represents Esau and his forces in this notable horn. A horn in the ancient world, or in the ancient Near East, is a symbol of power and royalty and authority. This is Alexander, as he's known as the Great in history. Read verse 6.
Verse 6. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power.
So this ram that had 2 horns, which was standing before the river, again, this is talking about how the Persian and Medes eventually would clash with the Greeks against Alexander the Great. Read verse 7.
Verse 7. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with a choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him.
What?
But he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand.
So this is now going into how Alexander conquered and took over and subjugated all of the Persians in their constant battles. And everywhere he went, he subdued every nation underneath Greek rulership. Apayak, next slide. So Alexander the Great continuing. The Battle of Granicus was fought in 334 BC between Greek against Persian forces, which saw the Greeks victorious because of their more advanced lances and phalanx formations rather than the javelins used by the Persians. Taking place in eastern modern-day Turkey, Alexander marched his army across the Hellespont, which is a narrow strait in northwestern Turkey, to fight the Persian satraps. The second major battle fought was the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. The Persian forces were overrouted and scattered as overwhelming Greek forces slashed through their lines. This was a second major battle due to the Persian forces being led by King Darius himself. In losing, he ignorantly brought his wife, 2 daughters, and his mother to the battlefield, who became Greek captives. The last major decisive battle, which officially on a geographical scale brought the Persian Empire down, was the Battle of Gaugamela. This battle took place in 331 BC. Alexander and Darius met on the battlefield for the final and last time, which would surmise the tides to the victor. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Greeks and Alexander became victorious because of superior tactics and having light infantry forces. The king fled the battlefield with his personal guard, trying to rally his supporters and troops further east, but to no avail. Darius III was assassinated by one of his own generals named Bethus, who was pursued and after a year was executed himself for his murder. The Persian Empire came to an end with the end of Darius's life, which would be 330 BC. Now the entire Persian Empire that was is now ruled and is now in control of the Greeks. So in verse 7, when it says, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Why? Because everywhere Alexander went, there were definitely more battles, but these are the 3 main battles that really turned the tides into Alexander's favor, because he's this little horn that is being noted in verse 5, and he's this he-goat with the Greek forces coming from the west. Does everyone understand so far? Rocky said he was not the first Alexander the Great. Yashar, when I said that, I mean, he wasn't Alexander necessarily. He wasn't the first one named Alexander. He's Alexander, like, he's the third one that was named Alexander. He has predecessors before him that also had the name of Alexander. No, he's Alexander the Third. What I meant by that was there were predecessors before him that had the name Alexander. So, Lockie, if that caused confusion, I want to make sure everyone's following along with the breakdown. All right. All right, perfect. So yeah, Yashar, that's precisely. All right. Verse 8, Daniel chapter 8.
This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven.
So, Alexander conquered all the way up until modern-day India, stretching so far east as no one has ever done before. And the Greek Empire covered 2 million square miles of land. So each succeeding kingdom would take over the next one, but would proceed to either try to do more or be greater than the previous. AHLAHAYANAWA, next slide. All right, these are more campaigns by Alexander. Extra campaigns were also made and carried out against the Tyrians in 332 BC. He took siege to them. Roughly, it took seven or more months, and he set fire to the city for how hard it was, because it definitely was impregnable by means of trying to set fire to it. It was surrounded by water, and it was very much difficult for them to try to subdue the Tyrians. The siege of Gaza also took place in 332 BC. Remember, Gaza is one of the Philistine city-states. It is one of the 5. This siege opened way for further conquest towards Egypt, towards the south. When he came to Egypt, Alexander was openly welcomed and pronounced Pharaoh, the son of Ammon, the Persian satrap, which is a governor, surrendered to Alexander and was able to keep his position as governor. Alexander named the town after himself, namely Alexandria, which would be the first of many, which became the second biggest city in Egypt. It also became the supreme Hellenistic capital of the world during the time and after the death of Alexander. He wanted the city to be popular and left a big portion of Greek culture and life there, and everywhere else he went and conquered. Alexander would die at the age of 32 in 323 BC, having his empire 2 million square miles. It spanned 3 continents, and by the time he died, he founded 70 cities, naming them mostly after himself, and left behind one of the most cultural impacts on all nations subjected and under Greek rule, i.e. Hellenism. So, of course, we've read and we know about what happened and occurred in Maccabees, going on 4 years roughly. Every dedication, we emphasize what it is that happened during the story and how it wasn't just Israelites that had to fight against the Greek forces with Judah Maccabeus and his brothers. It was also inward fighting, because a lot of our own people sold out and followed after the Greek way of life and customs, because we know that many Israelites consented to the religion or the way of life to the Greeks, as the book of Maccabees records. And I want to emphasize the problem with, the program of Hellenization was not exacerbated and violently forced up until Antiochus Epiphanes, that's written of in the book of Maccabees. But Hellenism and the Greek culture and the spread of it began during the time of Alexander, his generals and his army, everywhere it is that they went. They were already spreading it, and necessarily what we read about in Maccabees, that was violently forced, whereas Alexander, everywhere he conquered and went, he had to leave behind Greek troops and governors to govern over the regions. That way they wouldn't revolt, and he could keep everything and everyone in control as he went on conquering further east. All right, so again, he died in 323 BC at the age of 32. A lot of people like to say he died of some kind of fever, which is
in my opinion, untrue, because I actually forgot where it said that he died of syphilis. He was his lover's best friend, Hephaestion, and I read somewhere years ago that he actually died of syphilis. So it wasn't a fever. I don't favor that story. Apayak, next slide. All right. Now, it says in verse 8, for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. Now, this part is referring to after Alexander died. After Alexander's death, his top generals fought for control of this vast empire. These warring conflicts lasted from 321 to 281 BC, resulting in new empires and kingdoms over this Greek Hellenic world. These conflicts were known as the War of the Diadochi, Diadochi meaning successor. One key takeaway from all these wars is that all of these separate kingdoms established their own domains and enforced, propagated, and infused Greek culture and influence on their subjected and conquered peoples. I want to emphasize that because the Greek forces militarily, and now that they're living amongst the entire Mesopotamian region in Asia Minor, they're now settled inside those parts of the world now, as opposed to mainland Greece. They're not just going to drop who they are pertaining to their identity as Grecians and how it is that they live just because they're living amongst foreign people, no matter where they're at in the empire. Again, during the conquering of Alexander, they brought their way of life and living with them everywhere they went. So this is after his death that the War of the Diadochi occurs, because now all of his generals and those that are coming after him are now all fighting and splitting up for control. Next slide. After his death, the 4 notable ones are as follows. Cassander, he inherited Macedon and much of the Greek city-states. Lysimachus gained west of Asia Minor and Thracia, or Thracian, which is northeastern Greece. Ptolemy gained Egypt, Cyprus, and Syria. There's going to be a little bit of confusion, but I'm going to explain it in the next slide. Seleucus, there's a reason why there's 3 stars by his name and 1 star by Ptolemy. These last 2 are very important to our own history, especially the Seleucids. Seleucus gained the biggest portion of all of them, entirely Mesopotamia and in the eastern Indus Valley, meaning creeping and going into modern-day India today. I'm going to show the map to show how vast his portion of the inheritance of the empire he gained. There's a powerful sword in the back of his death from shadow taking Panah. Ptolemy named himself Pharaoh. Absolutely. They took on the titles of Pharaoh and became kings up until the 1st century, when they were eventually overthrown by the Romans. All right, Apayak, next slide. All right. Seleucus the First Nicator. This is important because this particular man and his descendants that come after him are the ones that we read about in the book of Maccabees. Seleucus the First Nicator. Nicator means conqueror and can also mean victor. Seleucus was also born in Macedon, as Alexander was, and was later in life a general officer and successor to Alexander. In the wars of the Diadochi, he became complete ruler in Asia Minor, Syria, Mesopotamia, and the Iranian plateau. He founded the Seleucid Empire in 312 BC. That is very important. And yes, it says Syria here because the Ptolemy and Seleucus and their descendants had constant wars back and forth over the years after each general settled inside their own areas. All right. Chandragupta, the king of the Mauryan Empire, modern-day India, gave Seleucus 500 war elephants in a treaty in 303 BC to give up Indian territory of the Eastern Empire. That is important because when we read the book of Maccabees, this is why, even though Maccabees takes place in the next century afterwards, this is why they were able to use war elephants against us during battles in the century afterwards, second and first century. This is why when we read about it, they had war elephants. The Indians gave them war elephants to use, and they used them wherever it is that they needed. The city of Antioch, it's also in the scriptures, was founded by Seleucus in 300 BC. It served as the capital of the Seleucid Empire. It is located today and along the Orontes River in modern-day Turkey. Seleucids of Syria contained 4 major cities. Antioch, which was named after his father, Antiochus. The name would also be passed down to his son, who would be known as Antiochus I, or excuse me, Antiochus II. Apamea was named after his wife, Apamea. Laodicea, this is also in the scriptures, was named after his mother. And Seleucus Piera, which was a Hellenistic town along the Orontes River, was named after himself, bearing his own name. So these are the 4 notable ones that came up after Alexander died. But this particular individual is the most important out of all of them because this is where our history deals with, and this is where the breakdown in Daniel chapter 8 is going to go towards. Because this particular individual and one of his particular descendants is what's going to be prophesied and talked about here with the continuing scriptures. Before we get into the scriptures, let's pull up some of the pictures. Let's close out the slideshow. Pull up the first picture, facts about the Persian Empire. All right. So this would have been the Persian Empire back then, along with the regions particularly that were conquered. You see Egypt, a portion of Libya, a portion of Greece was conquered. Turkey, where you see Cappadocia, Armenia. Assyria, of course, they undermined and overtook Babylon. Babylon is in modern-day Iraq. You see Persia, Persepolis, Pasargadae, Parthia, Arabia, that would be Afghanistan. You see Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. These are the modern day names, but along with the the ancient tribes that they were known as within their time that were conquered by the Persians. So the shaded area, this represents the Persian Empire and everywhere that they conquered. Let's pull up the next picture out with the green. All right. Now, if you're going to compare the previous one, now if you're going to compare the Persian Empire to the size of the United States today, this would be it. So it covers much of the United States, but not all of it. So 2.1 million square miles. This is what it would look like in comparison to the United States. All right, next one. All right. So Macedon is where Alexander and his father were at. These are the Greek city-states and the breakdown of them. You see the Persian Empire to the right. And I show this because all of the Greek city-states were separate, but they were one nation collectively. Next picture. So now if you want to compare how big the Grecian Empire was to the United States, being 2 million square miles, this is how it would look. All right, next picture. Should be a next one. Or is that all of them? Should have gotten a picture with the big yellow, the orange. Here we go. We can zoom in. All right. So when the 4 generals took over after Alexander died, so I'm going to start off to the left with the green. The green is what the general Cassander took, being Macedonia and much of Greece. Lysimachus took the orange, which is Thracia and west of Asia Minor. The blue at the bottom where you guys see Egyptus. See Cyprus right there. I think that says Cilicia. That is all taken by Ptolemy the First. And finally, the yellow, which is the most important portion, was taken up by Seleucus. And is evident here, as all of you can see, he took the biggest portion of the entirety of the whole empire. So when you guys were reading that in Maccabees, Antiochus went off and he, tried to sack this temple. He went to this place. He went to that place. Wherever it is, particularly it's speaking of, he had all of this portion of the empire that was inherited by his forefathers to invade and to take from and to sack their temples. So when we're reading Maccabees, we were not the only ones that had happened. All right, Apayak, next picture. Should be the last one pertaining to Syria. Now, when we're reading in Maccabees, and you see Syria, at the bottom, you guys can see it says Palestine, it says Tiberias, Caesarea. You see Tyre, Zidon. When you go more towards the north, you see Kowili, Syria, and you also see Syria. So when it's talking about how the Seleucids had gone back up to Syria, or you see Kowili, Syria inside the book of Maccabees, this is the portion that region is talking about because this portion of the empire operated as their headquarters. That's why you see Antioch here. You guys see the Alexandria that's right here as well. Very obsessed with himself, naming everywhere he went after himself. You guys see Seleucia here all the way up to the left. You see Apamea. You guys see here Epiphania, where Antiochus Epiphanes gets his name, his surname from. You see Antioch, that was spoken of within the scriptures. Maybe to the upper left, you see Tarsus. That's where Paul is from. And then you see Laodicea right here. These are important locations because when we're reading the book of Maccabees geographically, we need to know where it is we're reading at. When they came down to make war against us, they're literally upwards the north to us, and then they just come down right into Judea to make war against us that we read about in the book of Maccabees. It's very important that way we know where we're at when it comes to reading and we don't get lost geographical wise, and we know where it is that we're at when we're reading the scriptures. Who was in Saudi Arabia? Yashar the Ishmaelites. Bakwash maps heavily detailed. Absolutely, Bakwash, brother Ephraim Dawada. So all of this is important because now that we know who the 4 notable ones were, I didn't want to go too extensively into the line of the Seleucids, but I did want to say that this line, this man particularly, is the line that we read about in the book of Maccabees that is responsible for everything that it is that we read. So now, we're good on the pictures. And I hope that was able to be received by everyone pertaining to the presentation. Now we're going to get back into the book of Daniel, and now we're going to continue reading after what happens from the line of Seleucus the First and on downwards towards the timeline. So remember, Daniel is seeing this vision, and towards the end of the chapter, we're going to get the interpretation. So Daniel chapter 8 and verse 9.
This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great towards the south, and towards the east, and towards the pleasant land.
So, and out of one of them came forth a little horn. So this little horn came out of the line of Seleucus, known as the Seleucids inside the book of Maccabees. As a matter of fact, here read First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 10.
This is First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
And that would be 175 BC when Antiochus IV began to reign. So he is that little horn that waxed exceedingly great. When it says toward the south, it meant towards Egypt, toward the east, toward the Parthians, who were rivals and very much bitter enemies against the Seleucids at this time, and towards the pleasant land. The pleasant land is the land of Israel. Keep reading.
Verse 11. Actually, no. This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 10. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them.
So, why would it say this? Who knows why it said it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground, with the beginning of the verse saying, even the host of heaven? Does anyone know?
Repeat the question, please.
Why did it say that it cast down the hosts and of the stars to the ground and waxed great even to the host of heaven?
Is it talking about fallen angel?
Why is metaphoric speech being used here? Get Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 35. Quash said the falling of rulers. Absolutely up. Carter said the quash beating. The Shar said talking about Jerusalem and the rulers. All right.
This is Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 35.
Go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof war. The Lord of hosts is his name.
Yep.
If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever.
So the reason why this metaphoric speech is being used in verse 10, and it's talking about the stars to the ground and the light stamped upon them, is because what is this feast also known as? Not just dedication, the Feast of Lights. If we're in a state of darkness right now, and there is no light because temple service, as we're going to continue reading, was shut down, what does that mean? Which is why I gave the scripture. Our existence as the nation of Israel is tied to the stars, the sun, and the moon. Without us, there's no heavenly lights that would be in existence because our existence is tied to them. The Lord is showing you, literally and figuratively, we were oppressed so bad to the point where in that state of darkness, there is no light. That's why we also commemorate this holy day and this holy week. It's also called the Feast of Lights for a reason, which is why we light candles. Ephraim said I had Deuteronomy 17 and 15. Precept. Go ahead, keep reading. Verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down.
Now, this prince of the host, the he magnified himself, is speaking of Antiochus. Does anyone know who the prince of the host is? Does anyone know who the prince of the host is?
Text first.
None said Israel. Not exactly. And it says daily sacrifice was taken away. This is always said, I appreciate the honesty. And it says the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Does anybody have an idea?
Yeah, is that in First Maccabees? Was it Alexander?
This second Maccabees 3 and verse 1. Second Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 1.
This is
Here you go, Yashar.
This is Second Maccabees chapter 3, verse 1. Now when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well, because of the godliness of Onias the high priest, and his hatred of wickedness.
So this prince of the host is Onias the high priest, who was known as Onias III in secular history. When it says by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down, keep reading in Daniel chapter 8.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down.
Yep.
Verse 12. And host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered.
And the host was given them against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground. Psalm 119 and 142 says, I know thy law is truth, and it practiced and prospered. What practiced and prospered? Wickedness. Why? Because many Israelites did what? Let's read in the first Maccabees.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen, and that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have much sorrow. So this device pleased them well.
So this is what practiced and prospered. Wickedness and following after Greek customs and culture that these Israelites wanted to be infused with. That's what this is speaking about, and that's what this is talking about. When it talks about the daily sacrifice taken away and how the place of the sanctuary was cast down because the temple is the sanctuary where the priests reside, let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 29. Exodus chapter 29 and verse 38.
This is Exodus chapter 29, verse 38. Right? No, verse 38. Now this is that which thou shalt offer upon the altar, 2 lambs of the first year, day by day continually.
Go ahead.
The one lamb thou shalt offer in the morning, and the other lamb thou shalt offer at evening.
So when it said the daily sacrifice was taken away,
the priest is supposed to make a sacrifice once in the morning, the second in the evening every day. That's the daily sacrifice that was taken away. Why? Because as we're going to read about, I don't want to get too much into it with the story, but it does line up with what Daniel's being given pertaining to this vision. When ultimately Jerusalem was overrun with the Greeks and the forceful Hellenization of the Israelites, we know that Mattathias and his sons and those that wanted to keep the laws fled off to the wilderness and then began to fight. Temple sacrifice stopped and shut down. So when it talks about it being taken away and they cast down the truth to the ground being the law and the practice of prosper, that's talking about the wickedness that took place and everything pertaining to debauchery, fornication, and the complete profanity that the state of the temple was in when the sacrifice was shut down and no longer to be taking place. All right, so verse 13.
This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 13.
Mm-hmm.
Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto the certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice?
Right.
And the transgressions of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot.
Right.
And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
So, if that's the case, then, right? Put my calculation in real quick. So the saints spoke to one another, and they said, how long is this vision concerning the sacrifice, the transgression of desolation that is also mentioned by YHWH? A pig was slain on the altar. There's an excellent video. We've all came together in the past years and watched about what it is that Antiochus had done and how he profaned the temple. And of all the animals he could sacrifice on the altar was a pig that was slaughtered, which is the most filthy animal and the garbage animal of the animal kingdom that was sacrificed on the altar. And they called the name of the temple Jupiter, after their own gods. And when it's talking about the transgression or the sin of desolation, it completely took away the value and the beauty of the temple and how the Levites have to even bathe and have to be dressed appropriately before they even come to make sacrifice. And we know that here has, as we have read, this uncircumcised heathen coming into the temple who's not even of the line of Aaron to come and make sacrifice on an altar that he's not even supposed to be nearby or even to. And come to figure out of all the animals sacrificed on it, it was a pig. So when it's talking about the transgression of desolation, to get both the sanctuary and the host being not just the high priest Onias, but also the leaders at this time, to be trodden underfoot. This is speaking on behalf of now we're under extreme Greek oppression at this time. And now we're violently being oppressed. And now we're being forced to keep Hellenistic customs and fashions. And the Israelites that were already consenting to this as he came into power in 175 BC have already been wanting to follow it because they've had much sorrow since they left off of following it. So it said, how long shall this be? Read verse 14 again.
This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
Now, 2,300 days would be the equivalent to 6 years. But you have to remember, there's evening and morning sacrifice. So if you divide 2,300 by 2, it equals 1,450, 1,450 days. You're supposed to make sacrifice in the morning and in the evening. You split it into 2 because sacrifices are made at both times. This means how long shall the sanctuary receive me? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. What does that mean? That means for an entire 3 years, the temple would shut down out of its priestly service and there would be no sacrifice.
Pertaining to the topic, does Matthew 24 and 15 go into this time? Yeah, bro, talks about this. Go ahead.
This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Right.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Why? Because this is exactly what they did during the time of Greek oppression. He brought up Daniel because the Edomites defiled and profaned the temple in the past time during the period of Maccabees. YHWH, as we've gone into, was going to have it happen again, as we mentioned in the lunar Sabbath classes, that Titus, the general underneath Emperor Vespasian, was responsible for the destruction of Jerusalem and its temple in 70 AD. And gladly, if you Google the Ark of Titus, you can see the archaeology and how they carried off, the menorah that is in stone in archaeology.
Didn't Josephus say that because the amount of sacrificing at that time, during that time of war, when it ran out, that's when we lost? I think Josephus said something about that.
They were sacrificing so that the Lord would be on our side. To my recollection of memory, it didn't prevent or stop.
It didn't stop the prophecy, but they were sacrificing, and
they were convinced that when they were at a point where they felt like they were pushing them back, they were winning. But eventually, Titus gained the upper hand and strategically going around the walls and finding loopholes within some of the battles that gave him the upper hand advantage to then be able to encompass the walls of Jerusalem, throw them down, and then the Roman soldiers eventually began to break through all of the towns round about, and the temple was destroyed. Yashar, so there was 2 abominations, desolations. Yashar, there wasn't. He's figuratively speaking that when you see what happened the last time happen again, you're going to understand that you should flee to the mountains just as the Israelites did back in the time of Maccabees, and this is what you should do now. YHWH wouldn't be speaking of a prophet that lived roughly 600 years before him and talking about an event that already happened, unless he's figuratively and symbolically using what happened with the prophecy of Daniel and what we're reading about now to show and to explain who he's speaking to, the impact and what's going to happen and take place and what's to occur by using what happened inside the book of Daniel pertaining to the vision to help whoever is listening to him understand, which is why he said, whoso readeth, let him understand. And we know we're supposed to, read the scriptures, and the prophets are a part of them. Let him understand that this is going to happen again. And this is not something that you should just let go in one ear and out the other. So no, there's not 2, but he's using Daniel to emphasize how serious this is, because they defiled our temple. We were killed and slaughtered for those that wanted to keep the law, and those that did circumcise their children, as is written of in Maccabees. And those like Mattathias and his sons, and those that wanted to keep the law, fled to the hills. So these prophecies have cyclical exchanges. You could say so for this particular one. I'm not going to say for all of them, but in Matthew 24 and 15, YHWH used this and used the example of Daniel within his prophecy and what it was that he was given pertaining to a vision to emphasize and kind of overall explain what would happen in 70 AD. Romans 15 and 4 is what YHWH was doing. The things written aforetime are written for our learning. You could say so because after the Roman Empire, after the Grecian Empire, the Romans would rise up, and in 63 BC, the Roman occupation and eventually the end of the Seleucid dynasty came about. So you can definitely say that he did read that and then applied it to the time he was living in to emphasize that it would happen. So to the brother Ephraim, to your question, that actually could be cyclical because the Greeks defiled the temple in the time of Maccabees and shut down temple service, but in the time of the Romans, Esau again, this time they destroyed it. So again, Daniel chapter 8, verse 14, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Remember, you have to divide this in two, which would be a total of 6 years, but it's supposed to be divided in two because the temple service would be shut down for 3 years. All right, so Daniel chapter 8 and verse 15, let's continue.
This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 15. And it came to pass, when I, even I, Daniel, had seen the vision, and sought for the meaning, then, behold, there stood before me as an appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulad, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision.
So that was a man's voice that told the archangel Gabriel to make known unto Daniel the vision. So one of the archangels has to come and explain everything that Daniel is realizing and beginning to understand, and break down for him what it is that he's seeing pertaining to this vision. Go ahead.
Verse 18. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in the deep sleep on my face toward the ground.
Right?
But he touched me and set me upright.
So this is important because this is one of the times that the Lord speaks unto his servants, the prophets. Get Job chapter 33 and verse 14. Job 33 and 14.
This is Job chapter 33, verse 14. For God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth not.
Right?
In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon man, and slumberings upon the bed.
So in slumberings upon the bed, and he just said that he was sleeping. Go ahead.
Verse 16. That he openeth the ears of men, and sealeth their instruction.
So he's sealing the instruction with this vision that he's being given to Daniel. Now the angel has come unto him to expound and to explain to him what it is that he's seeing. So back to Daniel 8 and 17, he says at the end of it, Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. So Daniel right now is currently living inside of Babylonian captivity underneath the king Belshazzar. And then it says he has the vision in Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, which would be in modern day Iran, which would correlate to Persia. He's getting this vision pertaining to the, going to read as the king of Grecia, being what we had gone over in the slideshow presentation, being Alexander the Great. So this end of the vision that's being given to him is the end of the Persian Empire. And with the establishment of the empire, Alexander the Great, he conquers most of the known world at that point. And then it skips forward to when he dies. His 4 generals split up and take their own portions of the empire. But into one of these generals, being Seleucus, as I've noted in the slideshow, one of his descendants is who this vision is particularly about. And inside this particular vision that he's being given, we're reading about Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who is the man's voice talking to Gabriel. I could only surmise that it could be, if it's a man's voice, I could only surmise that it's YHWH, because YHWH is the chief angel. And aside from the Most High himself, he is the only one that can give instructions to an archangel. Just like how Uriel was talking to Ezra, he was given instructions by the Most High. I can only say that this man that was speaking to Gabriel is YHWH himself. All right, so Daniel 8 and 19 again.
Verse 19. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation.
Right?
For at the time appointed, the end shall be.
So he's going to make him know when all this is going to come to a halt and stop, as he's seeing it in his vision. And he's going to let him know what the end is going to be. Keep reading.
Verse 20. Which thou sawest has 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia.
Remember, because Persia originally was a vassal kingdom to the Median Empire. But eventually, again, in 559 BC, Cyrus the Great overthrew Astyages, who was the king over the Median Empire at the time, and united them together with the Persians having predominance now over the Medes, which is why it's called the Medo-Persian Empire. But also with that, this is why in the book of Daniel chapter 2, it emphasized the vision about the two arms of silver and the body of brass. Persian and Medes united now as one. Keep reading.
Verse 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia.
This would be Alexander. Go ahead.
And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
So, no, Alexander is not the first king in Greece. Alexander is the first Grecian king to go and conquer and take over the known world. That's what that context is talking about. Alexander is not the first king inside of Greece. He's the first king from Greece to go and conquer and take over the world. His father, Philip II, had plans to, but he died in 336 BC before he had the chance. So his son took that place instead. But
verse 22. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, not in his power.
So now that Alexander died in 323 BC at the age of 32, remember his 4 generals came and rose up, and now they've split into all directions pertaining to the taking over and dividing up of his empire. So, again, you have Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and the most important out of all of them, you have Seleucus, the first Nicator, who was the most important one out of all of them. And it says, but not in his power, not by the power of Alexander because he's dead, but by the power of his generals that are now dividing up his empire and establishing their own kingdoms now that he's dead and gone. What?
Verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom.
This is speaking about the Seleucids. Go ahead.
When the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up.
So, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Now, coming to the full, because we know that each succession of the empires all represent our captivities. This captivity being to the full, meaning when it's at the peak of its height, this king is supposed to come up into power and is supposed to subdue the Israelites, as we read in the prior verses from verses 10 to 11. So with that being said, and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. This is just speaking on behalf of the fact that they were very skillful in intrigue, and they were very crafty and very cunning, and they were very much deceptive. This is how the brother of Judas, Jonathan, was betrayed by one of the Greek generals, Tryphon, and he was put to death and killed. That's just one example. But pertaining to him standing up, now that he's in power, as we've read about in First Maccabees, he comes to power in 175 BC. This is who this is speaking of, because now he is the king of fierce countenance, meaning he does not care. We know about the story of Maccabees, women, young children, the story of Eleazar, the 7 sons. The king's eyes spared no one. Keep reading.
Verse 24. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people.
And his power shall be mighty. Why shall his power be mighty, but not by his own power, meaning he's not doing it alone? Because many of the Israelites also consented to his religion. The book of Maccabees is not so much external warfare, but it is also internal, because we were fighting amongst ourselves and the sellouts that were following after the Greek way of life and customs. So it's important for us to understand that it wasn't just by his own power. There were sellout Israelites like Menelaus and like the brother of Onias, the high priest Joshua, who changed his name to Greek, being Jason, that sold out our people. So when we're reading that, it says he shall destroy wonderfully. Wonderfully describing just how much catastrophe took place that we read about in the book of Maccabees. It shall prosper in practice and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. And that's exactly what he did, as we read about in the book of First Maccabees. Go ahead, verse 25.
Verse 25. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart.
Shall become very, very prideful, right?
And by peace shall destroy many.
Right? Because even those that weren't even fighting back were still put to the sword and put to death. And those that circumcised their children were even found and sought out in their own houses and were killed themselves. Go ahead.
He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without head.
So he shall also stand up against the prince of princes. Go to Zechariah chapter 2 and verse 8. Shall magnify himself in his heart, shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and by peace shall destroy many. The craft is also representing on behalf of the fact that he used our own people and the sellouts that were willing to bid and follow after Greek customs and fashion to have their own, how can I put, mercenary soldiers of Greeks to come and aid them to fight against the Israelites that were not Hellenized or were not following after the program of the vicious Hellenization that was being put upon us as the Israelites, i.e., the citizens that were still circumcising their children, but also against Judas Maccabeus and the brothers. What?
This is Zechariah 2 verse 8. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he set me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that touched you touched the apple of his eye.
So when it says he shall also stand up against the princes of princes, referencing and noting salvation, noting our Savior, and noting those that lead us, it says here in Zechariah 2 and 8, he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye. And the Most High very much dealt with him on that by the way that he died and how he went out, because his own body was rotted away with worms. And it didn't take an arrow. It didn't take, being in war, being in battle for him to die. The Lord rotted him in his flesh for everything that he did to his people. And that's recorded inside the book of 2 Maccabees, the death of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. So when it says he shall be broken without hand, he's going to be put to death, and his death is recorded that he died without even being in battle. Beloved, in my notes I have both Liberius. Could I have the correct translation? Possibly, because this division inside Daniel chapter 8 is referring to the Greek period. This context here is referring to Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Let's keep reading.
This is Daniel chapter 8 verse 26. And the vision of the evening in the morning, which was told is true, right? Wherefore shut thou up the vision, or shall be for many days.
So he says, shut thou up the vision, because what you saw is going to come to pass, and Daniel wouldn't even live to see what happened, because right now he's living in the first captivity, which is Babylon. What?
Verse 27. And I, Daniel, fainted, and was sick certain days. Afterwards I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it.
So you can understand how he felt. And, we can definitely take into account that if you just watched and caught the glimpse of everything that you're envisioning and seeing, and you don't understand what it is that's happening, you can understand how Daniel felt, because he's watching what we're reading about in Maccabees, and it has to be explained to him and broken down about what it is that's going to take place. Imagine how he felt. There's nothing he can do about it. So this covers Daniel chapter 8 and should let you know the power and the authority of the scriptures, because without the scriptures, literally, there would be no Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great could not be mentioned in history without mentioning the book of Daniel. And also on behalf of that, when Alexander was conquering and he subdued Tyre, which is just north of Israel, Josephus actually recorded that when he came down to Jerusalem, because you have to, if Tyre is here and he's continuing to go down south, he eventually made his way to Egypt. He's going to cross into the nation of Israel. The priest, Josephus recorded that the priest actually showed him the scrolls and the prophecies in Daniel, and they told him this was you that was coming and you would be prophesied to have done and do these things. So, respectfully, without the book of Daniel, there is no Alexander the Great. There is no Cyrus the Great. There is no Roman Empire. Daniel literally prophesied hundreds of years of history before he even lived to see a lot of it. And prophesied literally the last 2 books inside the Apocrypha and everything that would take place and what would happen. And this prophecy was literally on point of how the temple service and sacrifice was shut down for 3 years and literally was restored in the 3rd year on the same day that they defiled the temple by the Spirit of the Lord. So that concludes Daniel chapter 8. If there's any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the chat now.
Why don't you take that to the back and capture?
Wait, seriously. I also want to mention there will be a quiz on this.
Let's fucking go.
Oh, it's a Holy Week. So there will be a quiz on this. Definitely will be a quiz on this.
So, stupid question. When they talk about Alexander the Great, are they referring to the third? Are they talking about him as the whole like generation of his fathers?
Both. But I put the third because if you look up Alexander, the Great is going to come up, but he's not the first one with the name Alexander. That's why I put he was known as the third. But he's Alexander the Great, for what it was that he did in history. So, he's not the first one, is what I emphasized to the brother earlier. I was literally typing that question. Comic wash. I on the bar. The water for the feedback. I hope everything was clear and precise pertaining to the entirety of this breakdown. But as we hold the feast collectively together across the states Friday, we'll definitely be going more into Maccabees with the lesson that's going to come out and ruin what's to take place, but definitely along the lines of what it is that's going to be brought out. This is just the prelude to it before we get into the story itself pertaining to Maccabees. So Daniel prophesied it, he went into it, and this is everything that he was given pertaining to the vision that would take place before we read about what happened. AHLAHAYANAWA. Any more comments, concerns, questions anyone has pertaining to the breakdown in the book of Daniel? Remember, he was given the vision, and he was living and alive during the Babylonian captivity when he was being shown everything that he was being shown pertaining to Daniel chapter 8. When are you picking this back up? In a couple of weeks, because I want to cover the entirety of the Daniel statue, and I want to cover just how important that statue is to all of secular history. We're going to do a series on Daniel like we did Samuel. Not necessarily, Yashar. What I do want to do, though, is I'm actually going to go into the statue breakdown and the animals that Daniel prophesied and spoke about. I don't feel all of Daniel is important, respectfully to say, but that portion and dealing with those visions are very, very important to secular history. Definitely cannot put aside how important that is. Without the book of Daniel, literally from Nebuchadnezzar came to power in 605 BC, from 605 BC up until the end of the Roman Empire, you can consider all of history to be absolutely voided and nothing if it wasn't for Daniel. The only reason why history played out the way it is because Daniel spoke all of that into pre-existence that all came to pass, being the prophet of the Most High. So literally without Daniel, there would be from 605 BC up until the breaking up of the Roman Empire, the fall of it in the 5th century AD, there literally would be that's voided, empty, dark space of history without Daniel. That's why we went into this tonight to show how powerful it is and how he spoke everything before of, and it came to pass and happened. Anything else? All right. Imagine Mapani Makudam. This is Psalm chapter 100. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness and come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. In the name of YHWH, SHAMI, YHWH, Amen.
Amen.